Welcome back, book sniffers. I'm sorry it's been so long, but there's been a number of things happened that meant that I couldn't do a video for about a month or so. But we are back here at Sherlock Pages, so let's take a look at what's coming up today. There are a few books from authors that I wanted to tell you about. Then I want to tell you about our book club, which I'm super excited about. I'm here today with Sophie Pavelle, who has just published To Have or to Hold. You have my thanks forever for sending this wonderful photo. I've been made a patron of the British Pilgrimage Trust, and we're going to be helping to curate a list of books. As I mentioned, a lot has happened. I've been so busy. Firstly, I lost my microphones. So my partner Agat went away on a trip. It's totally my fault, but I'd left the microphones in her bag. Then she came back. We forgot about it. I was just scrambling around, searching absolutely everywhere, turning the shop upside down and our house. Didn't find them. And then inevitably, like always, they turn up. I also had to host 2 pop-up shops. So we had one pop-up at Dalesford Farm in Gloucestershire, which is really quite luxury and quite nice. I think we met some really quite high-flying customers on that pop-up. It was absolutely lovely there, and they had the most beautiful trees. I got to meet up with someone from the British Pilgrimage Trust, actually, and that was really productive. I've actually got some great news, which is I've been made a patron of the British Pilgrimage Trust, and we're going to be helping to curate a list of books all about pilgrimage for them on their website. And I'm going to be working with the Trust because they are brilliant. And for those who don't know, me and my partner Agat actually found Sherlock Pages on pilgrimage from Bath to Glastonbury. We went on the British Pilgrimage Trust website. We downloaded the route. We realised that this was possible. We hadn't been to Frome before. We walked in one glorious evening and, well, it's a long story, but to keep it short, they say the rest is history. Here we are, Sherlock Pages is here, and onwards to fresh pilgrimages ahead. I also hosted a pop-up at Rewilding. You may have seen a video we did with them last year all about Isabella Tree's book, Wilding, one of the kind of cornerstone foundational texts in the UK at least about the concept of rewilding, biodiversity within agricultural settings, bringing back life and allowing spaces for nature to thrive. Hold on, I'll just get that book for you if you've not seen it, although I imagine pretty much most of you have, but just one second. Here is Wilding by Isabella Tree. It's all about the Knepp estate, and I've not been, but many people who have just say it's really fabulous, and the species that they have brought back to this old farm are just quite incredible. And it's funny, when I was at Rewilding doing the pop-up, obviously a lot of experts and passionate people were attending because it was kind of like a festival for rewilding, and they were saying that this book is the one that influenced the most. But at that time, and this is probably not even, you know, it's probably 2018 maybe or something. Let me just check that. Bang on, 2018 this was first published. On the tables where this was being sold, there really weren't that many kind of complementary texts. Now at Rewilding, we had that table there, and it was actually just quite a small selection of what we offer, all about biodiversity, conservation, rewilding. These are controversial, kind of contested topics, but there is so much out there now, and there is such a wellspring of enthusiasm. We're actually really fortunate at this festival to meet quite a few authors, kind of too many to talk about today. But Derek Gow, he really struck me. He's a great speaker. He's a bit of a rebel kind of within the rewilding fraternity. And he just said And I think these words resonate into wider life. Sorry, wilder. Pardon the slip there, but it's on my mind. In his ideas stretch into wider life in the sense that he was saying sometimes it's best to just get on and do stuff in life, rely on yourself, get it done, get it started, and then other people will follow. And that's kind of what he's done with reintroducing species into the UK. He's been really central to bringing back beavers, and this is his latest book, Hunt for the Shadow Wolf, which we were selling really well. It dives into the whole kind of mythology, the history of wolves, particularly in the UK, how they survived actually for a long time, and then asking questions, can we coexist with these species? So that has been really popular. I really enjoyed the Heel Rewilding pop-up, but it did take a lot of my time. What else has been going on? I've been doing speaking engagements. I spoke at Hedgerows in Cheltenham. The wonderful Joe, the manager there, hosted me, a great turnout and some really, really good questions. Really enjoyed that. And then I got to go to some historic churches in the area afterwards. And I also spoke recently in Corsham in Wiltshire, actually within St Bartholomew's, an old church. And what a beautiful town Corsham was. I really didn't know what to expect. Actually, as I was leaving the event, there was a peacock just making its way, trotting down the street, strutting its stuff. And there were some lads having a beer in the evening sun. It's just bucolic. It was perfect. There was an old almshouse, which I really appreciated. So, yeah, it's been full of activity. And again, final apology. It's within my spirit. I'm English. I'm always apologising. This is why we couldn't make a YouTube video. But we are back. And we are really fortunate because before I go into a video interview with Sophie Pavelle, an author who visited, there are a few books from authors that I wanted to tell you about. Then I want to tell you about our book club, which I'm super excited about. And then I will leave you with the interview with Sophie Pavelle. So, an extraordinary thing happened, which is that we had Ursula Martin, the author, turn up to our shop. Now, this was pre-planned. She didn't just turn up, but she is on a epic journey from Land's End to John O'Groats to promote her book. So if you're not from the UK, have a little bit of a Google. That's the furthest you can walk on our island. But that is nothing, because she walked for 2 years and 9 months, maybe 7 months, a long time to write this book. One Woman Walks Europe from Wales to Ukraine and back. Now, it is unbelievable what she went through. Speaking to her in the shop was really quite moving. I don't think she'd mind saying, because obviously she's written about it. She had ovarian cancer and then completed an epic journey within Wales itself, which has been documented in a previous book. And now she has written, One Woman Walks Europe. And what was most striking about this, for me, is that I've walked the Camino de Santiago, or actually quite a small part of it, because it got way too hot for us, actually, and we had to stop our journey. But the Camino de Santiago is from the border of the Camino Frances, which is the main route of this ancient medieval pilgrimage, goes from the border of France and Spain all the way to the north west of Spain at Santiago de Compostela. And really, this is just kind of a blip within the much wider journeys that Ursula went on. And she talked to me in the shop about what it took mentally, what it took physically for her to get through this. It was in the time of COVID. So this book promises to tell a really unique story. I just wanted to give this a bit of a promotion because, Ursula, clearly a special person who has turned the most awful of times into something, really unique, as I say. I was also able to welcome to the shop Patrick Galbraith, who is a real character, a countryman. I described him as the Louis Theroux of the countryside. So There's a lot of books at the moment that take a certain position on the countryside of the United Kingdom, and maybe that might be saying that we need greater access to the countryside. We need to rewild the countryside. They have a particular angle. Now, those ideas are often actually quite complex and contested. Patrick's book really seeks to explore a cacophony of voices within the countryside. And it says on the tagline, rethinking our relationship with the countryside. Sorry, this is the book, Uncommon Ground, which is out in hardback now. I'm sure it will be out in paperback in due course. And I liked this approach because I imagined Patrick going to talk to people with quite an open mind, and seeking to get their voices into this text. For example, he talked about speaking to like young communists from Manchester out on the moors of the Peak District and the surrounding countryside. And also, though, then talking to gamekeepers, talking to landowners, talking to people who work with the land daily. And you can kind of imagine these people are on very different ends of the political spectrums often. Maybe they have stuff in common, maybe they don't. And the book is really structured to get under the bonnet of the British countryside. And so I think that this could really add to your knowledge and also reflections on country issues. Patrick was absolutely charming to speak to. I'm sure he's going to have a long and successful literary career. So if you're in a bookshop and you do see Uncommon Ground, take a look. I mentioned earlier that we did a pop-up at Heel Rewilding. I should have said that project is the first project in a vision to set up a rewilding site in every English county. So they started in Somerset. That happened to be the most ideal property that they found. And so you're really seeing, as well as bird life flocking to that site, so are people who are interested in making spaces for nature to thrive. And the reason they're doing that is because we are having such dramatic declines in biodiversity in the UK and globally. And Jan Stannard, the woman who helped set this all up, was basically fed up with waiting and wanted to roll up her sleeves, do something and get it done. And it was quite spectacular in terms of the results, in terms of the bats that are coming back. They talked about shrews in the field. They talked about raptors circling the land. I saw my first ever beaver dam. It was tiny, but it was a beaver dam. And that's going to slowly help to kind of regenerate the land there. And I was really inspired by that idea of just getting stuff done. And we actually had James Canton come to the shop, who has wrote many books about nature, wildlife, particularly in the UK. Renaturing, Small Ways to Wild the World. This talks about a small plot that James has, which he has worked on, and the difference that it can make. And it's kind of a personal reflection on that theme, out in hardback now. And I think if you're thinking, well, what can I do? This could be a really good book for you. You know, even if you just have the tiniest bit of land, you could get something done. We have a tiny garden, and hearing the insect life now that we've really planted it up with pollinators is quite special. If you don't have a garden, many people don't. I didn't for many, many years. It might inspire you to volunteer, get involved with a project near you. And I think it's always good to just hear different voices. So I wanted to raise your awareness to renaturing as well, if you're out and about in the bookshops. Yeah, and I did just want to say on this, I think sometimes we can kind of feel so powerless in the face of all the bad news and the kind of chaos around us. And I think kind of the purpose of why James has written this is to say you can do something. Even things on the smallest of scales can make a difference, and bring people together. And I felt that spirit at what was happening at heel was bringing people together. There were volunteers on that project from all classes and backgrounds. And there were obviously some wealthy individuals who were looking to do this on their own land as well. But I think that this is something that we can all be fans of. You know, we can all be fans of nature, wherever we come from, geographically, in terms of our own background. And I do thoroughly believe that. And I always say it would probably be better to spend your money and time and effort supporting nature than supporting Derby County, much as I do love them. For those who aren't from the UK, that's the football team I support and have been travelling to see for many years, often unsuccessfully. Okay, the shop is full of new books and I just don't have time to tell you about everything. But let's get on to the Pilgrim's Book Club. So we had a book club last year at Sherlock Pages and it was quite successful. It didn't really operate in a traditional book club way, you know, where you'd have 5 or 6 friends and you would gather together, read a book a month and discuss it in the maybe local cafe or the local pub here in the UK, for example. But we wanted to get something going again for a number of reasons. I think it will give me a real focus for producing YouTube videos. So we will pick a book each month, fiction and non-fiction, centered around everything we do, which is, you know, nature, landscape, long distance walking, historic tales, heritage, broadly under this kind of canopy theme of pilgrimage. And you know, on Instagram I go as English Pilgrim. That's my handle on there, and it has been for many years, and I've been walking what I call mini pilgrimages and some longer ones for well over a decade. So I'll give you an example. In July, the book that I've picked for us to read, and there is a place on the website now you can find more about the book club, will be The Granite Kingdom by Tim Hannigan, A Cornish Journey. I've picked this book because it's really been recommended by a number of customers. They say that Tim writes with great humour and really kind of brings you through the story. It's not twee, apparently. It gets under the bonnet of what Cornwall is really like. For those who don't know, it's one of our most beautiful counties. In fact, many people who are Cornish say it's not in England, it's Cornwall. And it's full of beautiful historic scenery, and I really want to show you this. So we would read about it in July. Within July, and I've bookmarked this for the very end of July in my calendar, I will go explore some of the landscapes mentioned in the book, hopefully go on a little bit of a pilgrimage myself there, and film a YouTube video, which I hope will bring to life the read. Then just after that, so probably sort of a couple of weeks into August, we can gather live on YouTube. I will run through some of the points that I really thought were important about the book. I'll show you some of my photos from Cornwall, maybe picking up on some of the themes from Tim's book. And then I will invite questions and comments from people who are gathered live. Now, I know that not everyone's going to be gathered live because of time zones. I will try my best to make it accessible, and we'll just have to see how it works. But there will also be the YouTube video as well. I'm going to create an Instagram broadcast channel so that people can join that and discuss the book as well and have a bit of an open house there. And what I really hope is that people can become friends or bring in their own friends, and maybe even run their own kind of side book club where they do discuss it and then they watch the YouTube video as well. That would just be the perfect result. You can get the books from us, of course. If you choose not to, then you're very welcome to enjoy the content and join the live as well. That's fine, but you know, I really am hoping people choose to support us, but I'm quite relaxed about all this. We'll just kind of see how it goes. Just to let you know what the other 2 books are. So we will be showing 3 books on our website at a time. So if you want to, you can kind of do a package bundle and get all 3 here they are at the same time. Get them whisked out to you wherever you are. They will all arrive, and you will know that those are, you know, kind of July, August, and September's books, and you can be reading those. And then we will release another batch, and then for your next order, you can wait until you've got kind of another 3. And we'll constantly be updating the website and our social media, and I'll keep you updated on, you know, when we're releasing YouTube videos, when we're going to be doing lives. My calendar is pretty crazy, so yeah, you're gonna have to stay with us, but we will be communicating by all those channels, and of course our shop email at sherlockandpages.com. You can sign up and get the email. Anyway, enough waffle. So we've been through July's pick, A Granite Kingdom. The second pick, and I really thought deeply about this. I wanted to do something that was maybe a little bit surprising for people, so I've chosen A Little Trickery by Rosanna Pike. This is fiction. This is a story that's all about kind of the late medieval world in England, and it's been so highly recommended by a very good friend of mine who is a voracious reader. So I've got quite a high level of trust in that recommendation. I wanted to kind of do something historical where we're really grounding ourselves in a different world. I love that about reading, and then visiting historic sites that make what you've just read resonate even more, and hopefully I can show you that in person. I'm thinking that I might visit some places in Oxfordshire along what is called the Shakespeare's Way, just because it's a landscape that I love so much, and I think there's a couple of bookshop visits I want to do there, and I'm sure there are some historic sites along the way that are really worth seeing, that will kind of help us to think about the late medieval period mentioned in this book. Sorry, I did just want to read the blurb on this because I feel like it does the best job at giving you a description of what it is. So, born a vagabond, Tib Ingleby has never had a roof of her own. Her mother has taught her that if you're not too bound by the big man's rules, there are many ways a woman can find shelter in this world. But now her ma has gone. As she journeys through the fields and forests of medieval England, Tib discovers that there are people who will care for her as well as those who mean her harm. And there are a great many others who are prepared to believe just about anything. So when the opportunity presents itself to escape the shackles society has placed on them, Tib and her new friends conjure an audacious plan, her greatest trickery yet. But before they know it, their hoax takes on a life of its own, drawing crowds and vengeful enemies to their door. Just sounds so intriguing. The cover is beautiful. I'm really looking forward to reading this. The third pick for September is just so on brand for the Pilgrim's Book Club. It is On This Holy Island, A Modern Pilgrimage Across Britain by Oliver Smith. Now, I have read sections of this already, but I'm going to reread it. I think it's really important for the book club to kind of think about what does pilgrimage mean in the 21st century and explore that. I know that it's going to speak about some landscapes I know well. I will head out on a pilgrimage. I'm actually thinking about maybe going to Canterbury to kind of celebrate pilgrimage in September if I can, and showing you some of that on a YouTube video. So this has been really well reviewed. I think the Times picked it as a book of the year as well, so it kind of seems like a no-brainer. Then later in the year, I will release more picks as they kind of come to me. But those are the first 3. A Granite Kingdom by Tim Hannigan, A Little Trickery by Rosanna Pike, and On This Holy Island by Oliver Smith. And those are available on our website now. Look in the navigation bar. It will direct you to the Pilgrim's Book Club, or you can just search them in. You can bundle them all up and get them out to you. Or if you're near Frome, we'll be happy to order them in for you. We have actually outlined some stock we've bought in, some quite high numbers, so fingers crossed. It's all a bit of a risk, but we really wanted to bring the book club back. So, well, we've done it. Okay, now I want to speak about our author interview to round off the episode. So, just one moment whilst I grab the book. So the book is by Sophie Pavelle. It's called To Have or To Hold: Nature's Hidden Relationships. And it's all about this idea of symbiosis, how different species have evolved to rely on each other, and how important that is to knitting together ecosystems and biodiversity. Sophie is a really, really talented communicator. I think you'll see that come across in the interview with her. She came to the shop and we said, do you just want to do that now? And she said, yeah, okay, that's fine. She also recommends some books from the shop. We got her to go around and have a kind of scan of our shelves and pick some of her favourite books, which was really informative, interesting picks for certain. And she just seems like such an enthusiastic and thoughtful, informed individual who is willing to follow their interests and intrigue wherever it takes them. And I think that is admirable, quite rare, and something that makes the writing that Sophie does, as well as all of her other activities, just so interesting. So now we will go to the interview with Sophie. But just before that, I want to take a moment to really appreciate two people. People often send things into the shop, postcards, trinkets, and these are acts of such kindness and they really warm our hearts. But this one was actually a real standout. Chris and Sarah from Anglesey, you have my thanks forever for sending this wonderful photo through of my book here on the Menai Suspension Bridge. Sorry, I always struggle with that word. The Menai Suspension Bridge in Anglesey. For the third time, the Menai Suspension Bridge. Sorry, Chris and Sarah. That's one I've always struggled with. And it says underneath, long live the hedgerows. They also sent in such a lovely card that referenced the YouTube channel as well. I'm going to have to get this fixed in place. I'm not sure whether I'm going to keep it in the shop or at home in the office. I think there's a decision to be made on that. But I just would never have expected these things to happen or people to be so kind. And I had Chris and Sarah on my mind because when I opened the package, I thought, you know what, I will show them on YouTube because they're obviously keen viewers. Then I lost my microphones and got so busy. I was thinking, gosh, they're going to think that I just didn't just didn't care or whatever. And I kept on thinking about it. Like most days I was thinking, I really need to get that YouTube video done so that they can see that I planned this the whole time. So thank you so much. I can't believe, I never envisioned that we'd have all these postcards and such things. We've actually started a new wall of postcards because so many had come in. But please keep on sending them because it's making the shop look so good and it is really fun. It always makes the postwoman giggle every day. If I get a bill, I just go, oh, I'm not interested in that. But if I get a book or a postcard or something else, it always brings a smile to our face. So thank you so much. I just wanted to take a moment to say all of that. Now to the interview with Sophie Pavelle. Hi everyone, welcome back to Sherlock Pages. I'm here today with Sophie Pavelle, who has just published To Have or To Hold. Now, Sophie is such a star in the environmental world, particularly here in the UK. But Sophie, for those who don't know you, what do you spend your time getting up to?
So I'm an author, I'm a science communicator, and the way that I describe what that means is I like to think of the position of being a science communicator being effectively a translator between scientific research and scientists and academia and the public. So I try and find different ways to tell stories about what's happening in science, nature and the climate, and try and reach new audiences and get them excited about nature and the environment.
And I think you do that so well, and you've been brave, because this book, to have or to hold, is all about symbiosis, right?
Yeah.
Quite a complex topic, but one that is utterly fascinating. Can you explain to us a little bit of what the concept is behind the book and why you wanted to tell this story and try and communicate this complexity to a wider audience?
Yeah, so the word symbiosis stems from the Greek word meaning living together. So symbiosis describes this bizarre, very complex, and to me really intriguing phenomenon where completely different species have evolved to live together for survival, whether that's literally living in one another's bodies, on one another's bodies, together for life or for a beat of time, and then they separate. And symbiosis to me felt really pertinent to be looking at the moment, because when I first came across symbiosis, it was either in the form of a children's book, so stories of different species sweetly coming together, both mutually benefiting and helping each other out, give and take, or in academic textbooks when I was studying zoology at university, more in a parasitic sense, where the suffering of one species enables the survival of another, but I hadn't really come across it in a more modern narrative sense. And I just was looking at the news and understanding that the environment is in turmoil at the moment and our place in it is kind of up for grabs and thrown into question. And I thought, well, actually, nature has established these ancient and very sustainable and mysterious relationships that seem to be working and underpinning the strength of ecosystems. What can we learn from that? Can we learn any lessons from how nature lives together and how we can perhaps live alongside nature better and have a better relationship?
And could you give us an example of symbiosis for anyone who hasn't read the book or indeed come across the concept and is maybe struggling to kind of bring to life what you're talking about exactly?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where the more you get your eye into symbiosis and different species entwining their lives together, the more you realise it's everywhere.
Yeah, this underpins our ecological system.
It really does. I mean, we ourselves are host to up to 400 species of different parasite, whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not. Symbiosis is everywhere in the natural world. But I decided to start the reader off in To Have or to Hold with a species that is neither a plant nor an animal. It's called the mint sauce worm by virtue of its colour. So this describes a creature that is neither, it's kind of not really anything, it's an amazing hybrid because it begins life as a colourless worm, a flatworm, a marine worm, and then at some point in evolution it decided, or it was kind of pushed to adapt to assimilate and gather free-living algae from the surrounding seawater into its body, to collect algae in its body. And the blessing of algae is that it can photosynthesize. So suddenly this transparent, very simple flatworm that couldn't really make or digest its own food suddenly had an ally within its body who could make and digest food from the sunlight. And so this worm was then monopolising, or is now, in tidal pools all around the British Isles and around the world. It's got this algae in its body that can photosynthesize. Whether or not the algae is benefiting or suffering is debatable, and that symbiosis to a T is what is actually happening, what is the give and take, what are the participants gaining from the relationship, if at all. But what we've got is an animal that can photosynthesize, which to me is a biological miracle.
And I think from reading that bit in the book, the way you write about it is really captivating. It reminded me of an author who is a good friend of ours here at Sherlock Pages, Amy Jeffs, because you write about these things like across the great epochs of time, and like, did the worm know? Did the algae know? Right? And it's amusing in a really good way, you know. And I think it pulls you through the narrative. I've seen on your Instagram you're often reading, you're often making recommendations, and you're clearly an avid book sniffer, as we call them here at Sherlock Pages. So I just wondered, when you came into the shop, I asked you to pick 3 books from our selection, and I saw your eyes kind of wandering across the
Not
shelves
an easy task.
immediately. So I just thought we could go through 3 of those recommendations from
Yeah.
Sophie Pavelle, if that's okay.
Yeah, of
So I'll
course.
just grab those. We did pull them out here. So I will hand them to you.
Thank
And then we
you.
could just do a quick snippet on them. I know this is
Yeah.
quite difficult, but we'll try our best.
Yeah,
right?
we'll go for it.
So, first one.
First one is Anthony Doerr, who has fast become one of my favourite novelists and writers. This is one of his first, I think it's his debut short story collection, The Shell Collector, and it charts a series of stories about people interacting with nature and with each other in such a powerful, emotive and lasting way that I think the way that Anthony writes about the natural world and its effect on our emotions as people just stays on my brain forever and ever. And I learned a lot from him as to how to convey and be confident to convey emotion while still being accurate in science.
And he, of course, is famous for, hold on 1 minute,
Another
a
one of my
book that we
favourites.
both read, All the Light We Cannot See, which is perhaps his most famous one. I will talk about this soon, actually, so we'll leave that there, but I'm sure a lot of people know that. Okay, number 2. Here we go.
Okay, so we've got Deep by James Nestor, who is a really popular, successful science journalist, science writer, and this charts his exploration into freediving and the challenges that come with being a human terrestrial mammal and navigating the deep and what that does to our physiology. But he makes some really remarkable links between how our bodies navigate the literal pressures of deep water, and how that perhaps has some hints as to our evolution as sea creatures from millions and millions of years ago. So he writes really powerfully with lots of data to back it up, how visceral our connection to the ocean and marine environments are. And so when I was writing chapters that talk about marine species and our symbiosis with the ocean, this was very validating because it's so grounded in science and yet it's so lyrically told. It was, a really big inspiration for me.
It feels like diving into these books, pardon the pun, really does make us sometimes feel our human story.
Totally, yeah.
In much deeper levels. So,
Yeah.
full of puns today. But the reason this is in the shop, by the way, is totally because of Sophie. So I saw this and I looked it up and I thought, that sounds like something really interesting for us and something we didn't quite have in the shop. So there we go.
I'm honoured.
And number 3.
Oh, okay, so this is a very popular book for many reasons, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, and I loved this as soon as I read it, and I gobbled it up in about a day and a half, which is quite rare for me because I'm a slow reader. But Delia Owens has a fascinating story because this is her first novel, and throughout her career she was a zoologist, so she wrote academic zoology textbooks, and having studied zoology at university, I sort of resonated with that background in science a little bit. But I love everything about this book. I love the main character, Kaya. I think her nature of being strong and adventurous but very introverted and very attuned to the detail in the natural world around her was really exciting in a book character for me. And then also it's set in the deep south of the States, and that's where I was born, although my accent doesn't convey that. But so there was a lot of ways in which I sort of felt an affinity to Kaya, and the story has everything you want. It's got nature, it's got a plot twist, it's got great dialogue and characters. So,
and it's interesting you picking this novel and also talking about the works of Anthony Doerr. We try and pick novels, works of literature that have either really strong historic themes or have really strong environmental themes. They might not lead on that, but it's kind of woven into the text. Sometimes it is the lead character, almost like in Richard Powers' The Overstory.
yes, another one of my favourites.
But this one is super, super popular. I'm sure most people watching this will have heard
Yeah.
of Where the Crawdads Sing, but maybe some of you haven't read it and you can put it on
Really
your
recommend it.
TBR list.
Definitely.
Okay, Sophie, thank you for that. So, to wrap up, I did want to ask, because there was a quote in the book that really, really resonated with me. So this shop was born out of climate anxiety, as I've spoken about a lot. I previously worked in climate change and as an environmentalist, and I really struggled with where we are in terms of environmental destruction, biodiversity loss, and I think these are things that we're all aware of. But I did have a thought about maybe 3 years ago, which I would say is very similar to this quote, which you wrote, which is, as a millennial, my generation and those next in line have the fortune of a stunning possibility. We could leave nature in a better state than we found her. And that's something that I hold on to, even if it's on the micro scale, even if it's what we're doing within our own lives to try and have a positive impact. But I'm just wondering, after diving into all of this research and doing your travels around the UK for the book and all of your advocacy and campaigning work, are you hopeful? And how do you feel, how do you address that when, you know, maybe younger people are really concerned, ask about, you know, well, what about the future? You know, how do you respond to that?
Well, to be honest, I have hopeful days and days of despair. I think throughout writing this book, I was on the sharp end of many of the most sort of compelling and worrying statistics, and I was speaking to a whole range of scientists who were relaying their concern based on their research about the climate and the biodiversity crisis and the future of not only these interactions that I profile, but the wider landscape and the wider natural world. But I have hope because of people like that. So on the one hand, I was exposing myself to some very grim truths, but on the other hand, the people delivering those truths were those people receiving funding to help try and find solutions for a brighter future. And some of the research these academics are doing is mind-boggling, and it's just not getting profiled. It's not in the news, it doesn't get a spotlight because almost it's good news. And as species, humans have evolved to thrive on negativity bias, so we're naturally drawn to fear and things that kind of put us in a more focused, flighty state of mind.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes we have to check ourselves and almost look for the good news and joyful stories, because there are plenty of them about. They're just more difficult to find almost.
That's a really powerful message. Definitely as a person, I need to listen to that, because just in the shop, you know, you get 99 great customers, you have one, you think about the one bad customer.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe the, you know, you're always drawn to sort
That's
of
our
the
brain.
crisis, and because, yeah, in evolutionary terms, that gets you out of trouble.
Totally.
But yeah, that is a really interesting point, I think, to leave on. And here at Sherlock Pages, we're obviously about trying in our own tiny, literally tiny little way to raise the voice of people like you. And just thank you so much for what you're doing. And yeah, keep the recommendations coming as well over the years ahead.
It's so fun.
I'm sure there'll be more books, but it's really enriching to us. So thank you so much for stopping by. And you're on a bookshop tour now, right?
Yes, so I'm on tour with To Have or To Hold for the next few months. So going around lots of different indie bookshops all over the place. All the information's on my website and different literary festivals and stuff. But thank you so much for having me.
And you are active on Instagram, right?
Yes, yeah.
Your handle is...
At Sophie Pavelle, very mature.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on the screen so
Thank
people can
you.
follow as well. And we've got To Have or To Hold in store, as you can see, and online as well. So do check that out in hardback now. And yeah, a beautiful cover as well. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Quite a long episode today. We had quite a lot to catch up on. And hopefully some of you will join the Pilgrim's Book Club. There's kind of no formal membership. I just guess you get the books, you read them, and then you watch the YouTube videos, and we will gather when I can put a date out. And that will be super fun to see how it goes. If nothing else, it's going to be some great reading for several months. I'm really hoping we can keep this going long into the future, though, and that we can kind of, yeah, build something really fun, informative, and hopefully meaningful. So, long live the Hedgerows, and long live the Pilgrim's Book Club.